Committee, and our first order of business is going to be the investment report.
Evening. Our LGIP rate was 4.
Mr. Beatty, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself and your...
I'm Ted Beatty, Rutherford County trustee. Our LGIP rate this month was up to 491. Our bank rate is 4.72, but we were able to invest in several things between 5.25% and just under 5.4%. So that's helping. That's my report, sir.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion or questions? Hear none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Beatty.
Thank you, sir.
Next up is our fund condition report. Michael?
So the first thing I'll start with is our cash balances for the month of May. For the month of May, we ended with $490,798,898.82, with 94% of those being operating funds and a little over 5% being borrowed funds. And then I want to touch on, I will touch on the fund balance report. We went over that at the last budget meeting. I will note a couple of things. Our general fund balance did drop to a little over 26%, and that's just because we've approved some rather large amendments in the last 2 months. But other than that, our fund balance percentages are holding steady, so they are where we expect them to be. Then I want to transition to the revenue report, and there are a few things I want to point out on here. So I do have some good news. Did find a little bit of money for Commissioner Gooch. But seriously, our school facilities tax shows up 8.69%. And last month we were negative a little around 2 or 3%. So that's a little misleading though. So that is more money this year, which is good news. However, that is a little misleading comparative analysis wise, is because we had a very large apartment complex come in May. So that is the reason for that large jump or swing. So I just want to point that out, that we don't expect that to continue in the future unless there's another large apartment complex or something like that. Hotel motel tax is still up, and situs sales tax is still up. However, that has continued to slow as it has in the prior months, as we would expect. And then as of the end of May, we have collected 97.99% of property tax. So that is good news. We're right on par with where we should be. And then the other thing I'll point out is we are starting to get full revenue picture for the year. And one of the good news is I'll point out is if you look at our debt service fund, we've collected approximately 106% of revenues. And if you remember back from our budget meetings, we were showing about a $1.8 million deficit for budgeted for next year. This 106% will help that once we do our revenue amendment. And so I think it'll help that fund balance percentage for next year. But that's kind of us being able to see both sides of that there. With that, I'll take any questions.
Spring fling, is that, what do you think? Have you got the full effect of that into the hotel motel tax, do you think? I mean, it's still, we just winded down here the last week or so.
Well, keep in mind, we've only collected, that's going to be behind, so we would not have received that yet. Because keep in mind, we're only showing 9 months of hotel motel tax in here, so we still got 3 months left to come in, so we wouldn't have seen that yet.
Okay. Any other questions? Hear none, I'll entertain a motion on his report.
Motion to approve. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Michael. Next is our risk management financial report.
Good evening, Commissioners. I am Ed Elam, Rutherford County Insurance and Risk Management Director. First part, I have the financials. For the 264 fund, month of May, revenue $1,754,280. Expenditures, $1,772,731, with a negative $18,451. The total for the calendar year, the revenue is $10,470,775. Expenditures is $14,880,533. Revenue less expenditures is a negative $4,409,778. For the fiscal year, totals, revenue, $48,755,595. Expenditures, $55,918,721. The 266 fund for the month of May, workers' comp, $715.82. OJI, $101,635.21, for a total of $102,351.03. The year-to-date total for 2022-23, you have $1,359,673.13. OJI, $570,570.54, for a total of $1,930,243.67. Legal expense for the month of May, there is 27 for our county attorney, $27,465.14. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions for Mr. Elam from the committee? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve his report.
It's so moved.
I have a motion and a second to approve the report. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, thank you, Ed. And you got something else? Go ahead.
Yeah. So I have the rates for the medical, dental, and vision. And you see the rates presented in front of you. The rates for 2024 that you have in front of you is exactly the same as what it was for 2023. So there's no rate increase on all of the rates, none of the tiers, and there's also no increase in the deductible or the out-of-pocket. So it's basically the same as last year. On the second page of that, the second page has Medicare Advantage plan, and those rates would be approved at the same time. The next page, you'll see where the Cigna Medicare Advantage Employer Group Plan, those rates are exactly the same also. You probably could take both of these at the same time if you would like.
The difference on the Advantage plan, what is that, Ed?
That is for the retirees post-65.
And there is an increase on that one. Is that what you said?
There's not an increase on that. It's the same. It is flat also.
Okay, and my understanding is all three of these were flat that you mentioned.
Yes, sir. All of them are flat.
Well,
The dental plans are the same, and the vision plans are the same.
Well, the reason I mentioned that, if there's no increase in that, then anyone that might have a conflict, there's no conflict there.
That would be correct.
So, you know, if anybody would declare that they had a conflict, you wouldn't have to on this one.
That would be correct.
Any questions from the committee on these three items?
I have a question. Do I need to change my vote or whatever as a retiree? Do I need to do anything with that?
Well, that's what I was just mentioning, is there is no change from last year. It's flat. So my opinion is no, you would not have to declare that. And I'd be in the same situation. I think Chanto also would be, but I think none of us would have to say anything because there is no increase or decrease either way. Any further questions for our director? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion. Have a motion to approve. And a second, Chairman Gooch. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call roll on this one, Mark.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Strino,
Yes.
Commissioner P.
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Ed.
Okay, there's one more thing. We have the Cigna Healthcare Individual Stop Loss. It's the last exhibit that you have. And what we're asking for tonight, the recommendation with the Insurance Committee, and in talking to Director Smith, is what we're asking, what Cigna would like is yes, we're going to do a stop loss. Now, the stop loss is the reinsurance. So your claims, if you look at individual pooling point, and your claims, you can do an option 1 of $300,000, which that's what we have at the present time, option 2 of $350,000, option 3 of $400,000. And it's just trying to look at your history, but it's best way I can describe it to you is your claims, any of your claims that go over in the option 1, any claim goes over $300,000, then Cigna picks up those claims and pays them. So your risk is up to $300, and how many claims that you have, large claims that would be above $300,000. Same thing with option 2, same thing with option 3. The recommendation, and again, in talking to Director Smith, is what we'd like to, what Cigna needs to know is, are we going to do the stop loss or not? What we would like to do is get an affirmative answer on doing the stop loss, and then let us do additional studying on our claims in the to see which one would be more advantageous to the plan. If you look at down where talking about the difference in the premiums, you see to go from $300,000 to $350,000, there's a savings of $133,000. To go from $300,000 stop loss to $400,000 stop loss, there's a $256,000 savings. So we'd like to be able to review the high dollar claims. The best way I can describe it, it's just you're rolling the dice. We're trying to predict high dollar claims that will occur in 2024 that people haven't even been diagnosed for yet. That's the best way I can put it. And you're just trying to say, how many do you think you will have, and what risk do you want to take? I will tell you there are some counties that don't have a stop loss, but I know when they went through COVID, they had to go back and ask for additional money because without the stop loss, their large claims just kept coming in more and more. So it's how much you want to gamble. Do you want to take a stop loss off completely? I'm not that much of a gambler. Or do you want to just give us another time, a little extra time to be able to examine our claims and see what large claims we have over the next couple of months come in, and then based on that, lock it in. This rate that we have here is locked in with your approval, based on approval from the county commission meeting, the 16th or whatever the meeting is, or maybe the 15th. So that's what we're looking for, to lock those rates in for approval to go with the stop loss, and then determine which one we want to go with later based on our data that comes in. I will say we're looking at presently about 4 claims that are near the $300,000 for this year.
Mr. Chairman,
You're recognized.
so the health insurance doesn't have a stop loss built into it. So we're looking at a separate policy for the employees to pay for anything over $300,000, $350,000 or whatever.
No, the
Is that what it
county,
is?
the
I'm just
county,
trying to sort it
yeah,
out.
the county plan as a whole has a Stop loss of 300,000, so that's your reinsurer, is going to be Cigna, any claims that go over the 300,000. Not the employees, it's the county plan itself.
The whole plan, the whole county's plan?
Let me see if I can explain this. So
Need a
we're
little more background.
we're self-insured for medical claims, you know, all of those types of things, right? So it's 300,000 per person. So if I go to the doctor and I have a hip replacement surgery that costs $200,000, you know, the county's going to pay all 200,000 of that claim. I'm just using a round number here. If all of a sudden I have a major procedure and I'm getting into the $1 million range on some type of procedure, whether it be a transplant or something like that, the county's only liable for the $300,000 portion on myself here. So it's per person. It's a $300,000 stop loss per person on the plan. We would pay medical claims, bills from the provider up to that dollar amount. Now, I will say I highly recommend some type of stop loss policy, and this is very similar amounts to what we have, depending on, with our size of people. So, because if we stay fully self-insured without a stop loss policy, and somebody has a $10 million claim, you are paying $10 million.
So it's like a reinsurance or basically trying to cover the county in the event.
Correct, but it's on a per person, it's not, for example, you could have multiple individuals hit stop loss. Right. So if 10 people have 10, you know, you could have 10 people, you could have none, but it's on a per person basis, not on the county as a whole.
And this is something the county pays?
We pay a premium out of our self-insurance fund.
Okay.
So
Does the employee pay any or all of it?
No,
Okay.
so it is budgeted into our premium rates when the premium rates you approved tonight that the county covers a percentage of and the employee pays a percentage of. The cost to run our self-insurance plan is baked into those premium rates. But this bill is not paid out of the county general fund, it's paid out of our self-insurance fund. But we fund our self-insurance fund through the premium rates that we charge, obviously the county ourselves and then the employee.
Thank you, Michael.
I had a question. I don't know who'd be best to answer this. You said you wanted to look at this for 2 months. We need to go ahead and make a decision before June 26th.
Let me clarify. I think what is approved here is we need to go ahead and lock in rates. But what we really wanted to do is because the county now has a smaller number of people in the plan. So when the schools left, and Ed can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we changed our stop loss coverage to the dollar amount.
Yes.
And so one of the things that was my recommendation, I believe it was Ed's as well, was that obviously we need stop loss coverage. I think we would agree on that. But I think we wanted to further decide whether we want the $300,000 coverage or the $400,000, because the premium for the $300,000 is almost $1 million. The premium for the $400,000 coverage is $733,000. So we'd like to do some actuarial analysis, and the more data we have to do that analysis, better helps us mitigate the risk of which one we'd like to go with. But tonight, to lock in these rates, we needed to go ahead and approve that we were going to go with Cigna for stop loss, and then we can choose our specific stop loss plan at a later date and bring that back to the insurance committee and then back to this committee, which was my understanding.
Yes, that we're going to do a stop loss.
I'm going to call on Chairman Phillips and ask you, you're on this committee, if I'm not mistaken. What's your take on this, Jeff?
My take on it, currently we were at 300,000. Everything is going up. So the only question is, do we want to change that 300,000 to something else? In essence, to save money, but you're also running a risk. You've got that middle option, which is 350, but you know, currently it's 300,000, and you're talking about a premium increase of what, $2 or $3 bucks, it looks like. So it's not a huge deal. The decision to make tonight is to continue the stop loss program, and then let Ed's department and the insurance committee, risk management committee, make the decision as to which one of these options that we want. So it's pretty simple. Just go ahead and approve stop loss for the county. That's real important. And then from there, we'll make up our mind. It's also kind of one of those things that we do pretty much every year. The thing doesn't go into effect until January anyway. So it gives us time. Go ahead we just need to go ahead and approve the stop loss.
Yes, Cigna needs direction. Are we going to do the stop loss this year or not? And just to get approval, and they've been gracious enough to give us more time so we can identify. And when you're looking at large claims, one of the things that you have to really dial down and is this a large claim, an ongoing claim that you're going to have year after year, or is this a large claim that it will go away at the end of the year and we're not even going to have it? But like I said, you're also trying to predict claims that large claims that possibly hadn't even been diagnosed yet. That's where you roll the dice. Sometimes you get it right, sometimes you don't.
It's different every year.
It's different every year.
Every year, but currently it's at 300,000. And really, the only question that we really need to be making tonight is, do we want to continue the stop loss?
The stop loss.
The answer is really yes, you guys.
And I concur, Chairman Phillips. I think we need to continue this. I was confused about how we were negotiating this price difference after we voted on it. So any questions from the committee? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Have a motion to approve stop loss.
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion? Irving was the second. Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner P.
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, Ed. Next up is the general fund transfer for juvenile court. Good evening.
I'm Katie Eady with the Juvenile Judge's Office. We're asking for a budget amendment for $1,000 to move from 399 to line 435 for office furniture.
And that's within your budget? Yes. Any questions?
Move to approve.
Have a motion to approve. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And a second. Any questions? Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner P.
Yes, motion carries. Katie, you come back anytime, as quick as you are. We appreciate it. Item 6 has been removed from the agenda. Number 7, the 2022 Homeland Security Grants. We're starting off. There's a stranger coming up to the podium.
Chris Clark, Public Safety Director. Myself and Commissioner P got the memo on a blue shirt tonight, so just want to add that in. Tonight we're requesting to allow the mayor to sign and execute a 2022 Homeland Security Grant, which we've been working on this for some time. We're at the contract signing at this point.
And for our new folks, this is something we do year after year normally.
What is
but
it? What is it? I'm sorry.
This is a 2022 Homeland Security Grant. It's 100% reimbursement of $111,000 of equipment that we would receive. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any questions for Director Clark?
What is 75-25?
100% reimbursement.
100%?
Yes, sir.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions for Director Clark? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner P.
Yes, motion carries. Please continue.
Also, as we end the 2022 grant, we're requested to apply for the 2022 Homeland Security Grant, which is 100% reimbursement also. 23, I'm sorry. 2023.
I have a motion to approve
Second?
and second. Any further discussion? Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner P.
Yes, motion carries. And I think you got another one there.
Yes, sir. So this year, 2022, 2023, Urban Security Initiative Grant. This is new to our region. Actually, we had this back some time ago. The federal government has not appointed Nashville as a urban area security initiative. And what that means to us is another 100% reimbursement grant. And we have to stay within the parameters of what we can ask for, things like that, which we work with our local law enforcement, EMS, and fire for these grants, what we need to submit. And when we submit these equipment requests, it would be part of this region that we would respond and help each other when we need, if somebody needed that piece of equipment. And we've been doing this for years. But it's a bigger pot of money.
Y'all decide as a group of what the equipment
Yes,
would
sir.
be, and then you share it within that group.
Correct. And so we meet, as the Homeland Security grants, we meet with committees through our different counties, Sumner, Trousdale, Cannon, Davidson, Williamson, and Wilson is our Homeland Security district. We as a committee, we meet, we determine the needs of our area, and then we submit on the pieces of equipment.
This one's 100% too, isn't it?
That is correct.
You've hit 3 home runs.
Yes,
Motion
sir.
to approve.
Thank you.
I have a motion, do I hear a second?
Second.
And a second, any further discussion? Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Shrino?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Okay.
Last but not least, we are requesting a budget amendment. We received $33,725 for a vehicle that we had an accident and totaled it. And we received that money from the insurance company. To replace that vehicle, we're requesting to move $4,000 out of 411 and $20,000 out of 599, and we'll replace this in 718.
Chris, was this a rental vehicle?
No, sir. We don't have any on leases.
You've heard the request from...
Motion to approve.
I have a motion, do I hear a second? And a second, Mr. Piercy. Any further questions? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Shrino?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Next up is the Ambulance Service Fund budget transfers.
Evening. Brian Gaither, EMS Director. We are requesting to move $15,000 from 119 to 105. And that was when we added those 4 captains position, 21, 22 budget, they were budgeted at pay grade 5. And some of the people that went into those positions had been here for quite some time, so they moved above that step 5. And then we're asking to move 200 from 338 into 347 to go into pest control. That's from adding the Rockville station that we didn't budget for. That's the old fire station that we took over as our central supply. And then 8,000 out of 719, 10,000 out of 453 into 413, drugs and medical supplies.
I'd asked him to put those together. If anybody on the committee wants to separate them, speak now or forever hold your peace. If not, I will entertain a motion if there are no more discussion or questions for the director.
I move to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Shrino.
Second.
And a second, Commissioner Johnson. Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Next up is a general fund budget transfer for the Correctional Work Center.
Superintendent Bill Cope, Correctional Work Center. And I am here to request authorization to transfer money from 160 guards or line staff over to 187 overtime, $10,000.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, this is a transfer within his budget. Any other questions for the director? Hearing none, call roll.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you all.
Next up is the general fund budget amendment for human resources. Sonia's out tonight, so Michael's going to cover this one for us.
So this budget amendment is due to increased costs for evaluation and testing services, and that's really related to everything from drug testing to psychological evaluations and physicals. Now, if you remember back in the budget a couple nights ago, or a couple weeks ago, we've consolidated all of this to one line item. And so that's the reason we weren't sure this year. It's spread out amongst all the departments. And actually earlier this year, we took an amendment from the sheriff's office to put in this line item for some of those. But that's what this is to cover additional drug testing, psychologicals, and physicals for the entire county, not just the HR department. So this will also encompass new hires, but also existing employees. And then next year, it's all budgeted in one spot.
Having discussed this with Michael, this is coming from unassigned fund balance, as you're seeing it. However, that will be reimbursed.
So we will be bringing a revenue amendment on the 21st, and instead of going through each department throughout the entire budget and trying to pick little pieces out of each, it was easier to take it out of unassigned fund balance. We will be bringing a very large cleanup amendment on the 21st, and so to save time, it was easier to just take this out of unassigned.
But that money will be returned when we look at the other amendment. Any further questions from anybody on the committee? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Urban, thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. All right, application for 2023 virtual reality de-escalation site-based initiative grant for the sheriff's office. That was a mouthful.
There's a lot to type, too.
Good evening. I'm Steve Spence, the Deputy Chief of Administration at the Sheriff's Office. We are requesting to apply for the Bureau of Justice Assistant Financial Year 23 Virtual Reality De-escalation Site-Based Initiative Grant. This grant helps pay for the implementing technology designed to enhance and training in law enforcement responses to individuals in crisis. It's a no-match grant for 3 years, begins October the 1st. We're applying for $800,000.
Mr. Chairman, is this something that we get a grant for once and then we're done, or is it something that we'll continue to need grants for?
After the third year, if we want to opt out of using the money, we can, or we can reapply for more grant money.
But this gets us through 3 years, basically?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Chief Spence, I don't remember this before. Is this the first time?
Yes, sir.
A motion, Commissioner Piercy.
Second.
Commissioner Sherino, seconds. Any other discussion or questions? Call roll, Mark.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Please continue.
Yes, sir. We are requesting to apply for the financial year 24 Mental Health Transport Program Human Transport of Patients Grant through the Tennessee Office of Criminal Justice Program. This grant is a no matching. The first initial request would be $25,000 plus a formula based on how many transports we did during July 1st of 21 through June 30th of 22, which was 2,000 transports. And we're currently on this grant now, using it.
Is this a matching grant on this one?
No, sir, it's 100%.
Sounds like a no-brainer to me, but any questions from the committee? Not, I'll entertain a motion.
Don't move, Mr. Chair, since it's a no-brainer. I can probably.
Well, man wants to give us money for something that's costing us. I'd say we take it.
A second.
Have a motion and a second. Thank you, Chairman Gooch.
Quick question. You said we're already on the grant?
Yes, sir.
So we're basically just tallying up how many we have?
Yes, sir. The grant we're currently using this budget year started in September, and we reapplying for next year's funding.
2023, 24, basically, is
Yes,
what
sir.
we're doing. Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
Well, you're welcome.
Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Shrino?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Motion carries.
Thank you. Y'all have a good night.
All right. Item 16, grant request through the Rutherford Opioid Board. And Chairman Harris is not here tonight, wasn't able to be with us. A couple of us sitting around here on that board. If there is any questions come up, but Michael's going to cover that for us. And basically, it's the expenditures that the board has approved to date.
So to date, the opioid board to give out essentially grants or distributions, they've approved $144,500, with $40,000 of that being to Hustle Recovery, $15,000 being the Kamari House, $24,500 being to Interfaith Dental, and $65,000 being to the Child Advocacy Center. And the reason you don't see a budget amendment in front of you tonight is that will, if this is approved tonight, as we discussed at one of the last budget meetings, this will go into effect in July of next year. And one of the reasons we're wanting to put it into effect in July is that some of these may potentially be a reimbursement based. For example, Interfaith Dental will be covering a position there. Well, we don't want to give the money and then they never hire it, and then we would have wasted that money. We want to do it on a reimbursement basis. But if this gets approved tonight, it'll go ahead and let us put the wheels in motion to get that going for next budget year.
Okay. Any further questions? Like I said, there are at least 3 people that sit on that board in the room here if y'all do have questions. If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Have a motion
Second.
and a second. Commissioner Sireno, any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Shrino?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Solid Waste Fund Budget Amendment, next. Like I just heard this story.
Good evening, Commissioners. Bishop Wagner, Rutherford County Solid Waste Director. I'm requesting that we take $62,670 from 402 asphalt and transfer it to 590, which is other funds, to cover the cost of asphalt at the Leanna Convenience Center. There was a materials overage.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? This is something that was passed. No, we've got a second. This was something that was passed Tuesday night at Public Works. So, like I said, there's several of us sitting here that were on that committee. But there are no further questions. Call roll.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Shrino?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you, Bishop. Next up is the general fund transfer for general sessions.
Good evening, Commissioners. Jacob Flatt here on behalf of General Sessions Courts. We are asking to move $5,000 from the travel line item to our office supply line item in order to purchase office equipment for our pretrial release staff.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Sereno. Any further questions for Mr. Flatt? Hear none, call roll.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you. Y'all have a good evening.
Thank you, Jake. Item 19, general fund transfer for leased vehicle buyouts. I think either the mayor or Michael will take this one for us.
So I'll take this one, if that's okay. So when we got to analyzing our budget this year at the end of the year and got to analyzing our lease program, one of the things we realized is we could save some money on some of the lease and interest payments on these. And for example, I believe Paws on here had 5 vehicles that are under lease right now that we just started leasing. However, if you recall, this body approved a budget amendment for him to hire a veterinarian. That wasn't filled for most of the year, so we had unspent money there for that, and we can utilize that money to pay off these leased vehicles because they allow us to buy those out at any time. And so this will save us quite a bit of interest over the life of these vehicles for Paws. And then additionally, when we got to looking at it, the mayor's office also has a vehicle that's coming up sometime at the end of next year to end the lease. However, there was some money budgeted by the previous administration that we haven't used, that we've been able to save, and this would save us money on that vehicle as well as far as the interest charges. And then as far as we're using a little bit of leftover salary money for Paws, that money is already in his budget for next year, so this doesn't affect any personnel for that year. It just utilizes the savings from having open positions in his budget. But it does save us several thousands of dollars.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve. I hear a second.
Second.
Haven't spoke to Michael about this. What's the range of savings, Michael?
Tell me having the exact figures in front of me, it's definitely in the $30,000 range or so for the Paws vehicles because they just came on lease. That's why that dollar amount's so large, and it's around $1,000 or so for the mayor's vehicle. So, quite not a lot of money, but I mean every little bit helps.
What is it? Watch the pennies; the dollars will take care of themselves. So will. Any further discussion or questions about this motion? Hear none, call roll.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson? Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes, motion carries. Next is a general fund budget transfer for finance. Michael?
So this is a transfer for my office. We had one employee that retired about a month ago, and then we've utilized some savings where we weren't sure what the overlap was going to be from the previous finance director. And so as we implemented our new payroll software and as our inventory personnel is short one staff, we've needed some additional money for overtime, and so that's what we're utilizing there.
You've heard the explanation. Do I hear a motion or more questions?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. And a second. Any further discussion? Call roll.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. Motion carries. Item 21, general fund budget amendment for unemployment. And Michael, that's you again, I see.
So every year we budget a pooled amount for unemployment because we really don't know what department that charge is going to hit in. And so this, we're taking from our pooled amount of unemployment and distributing that expense out to the applicable departments.
Basically a cleanup.
Correct.
Any questions for Michael? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Urban, Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner P.
Yes, motion carries. Next item is 22, dead stock removal contract.
So this is the contract for dead stock removal. As it says, this money, the reason there's not a budget amendment with this is this money is already in our current year budget, and we have included this in next year's budget as well.
And also laid page 2 at your desk there. When I pulled it up just a minute ago right before the meeting, I noticed that the document that they scanned to me only had pages 1 and 3 in it, so I got you that for your reference if you need it.
Thank you, Mark. As he said, this is already approved and in our budget. This is the contract that we didn't have earlier for you to look at. But we still need a motion to approve the contract. I have a motion to approve the contract. Do I hear a second? And a second. Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Urban,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner P.
Yes, motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, is there a particular process or procedure that the general public needs to know, a number that they need to call?
How does that work? What I've usually done, if someone calls me, is I've referred them to call to the mayor's office. I don't know if the mayor's got that current number, but in the past, I've had it. I don't have the current number.
I can tell you at some point in time when I was raising cattle, I did have it, and I'm sure I can find it. The entity that used to do it, Commissioner, was Griffin Industries in Pulaski, Tennessee, and I think they've sold. But I do know this, the Tennessee Agricultural Extension Office does have that number and the times that they operate. So if there's an issue where and this is for large animal only, and this isn't like roadkill, just so you know. But for large animal disposal, they'll come and pick it up. And so call the Tennessee Agricultural Extension Office. They'll have that for them.
Thank you.
I've got the number. It's 931-363-8284.
Commissioner Piercy to the rescue. Thank you, sir.
I appreciate it. You haven't lived till you've had a dead animal out in front of your. So anyway, that's one reason this is passed. This helps everyone in the county. All right. Now let's see. Have we voted on this, Mark?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now we're down to other business, and I want to make a quick statement. I usually, when someone requests to come to this committee, first thing I'm going to ask them is, have you been through the committee process? And if not, is there a compelling reason to bring this to our committee and bypass our committee process? Now, the particular one tonight should have gone to Public Works. However, Public Works will not meet again this month and probably won't meet in July. So you'd be looking at a 2-month down the road. And this has to do with the FEMA flood mitigation contract. So I've told them that we would hear that, but I want to give you a quick explanation on that. I always try to contact the chairman of the committee that's being bypassed to see if them and their committee are okay with that. That's not something I'm arbitrarily doing on my own. I tried to contact Chairman Cush and wasn't able to contact him today when I found out about this. But having said that, though, when I invite our folks to come up who wants to present this, Mike, I don't know if that's you or not, but please come forward.
Mr. Chairman, may I interject something real quick about the timing of this?
Sure.
Chairman P is absolutely correct. This normally would go through Public Works, but literally this got resolved with Mike and his staff this morning. And because of the time that has been spent on this particular issue, FEMA flood grant and the mitigation of that flood grant and the timing with rights to this budget cycle, that was the situation. If there was an opportunity to take this through the process, absolutely. Having said that, if this committee determines it needs to go back to Public Works, I'm not sure what we'll do, but that's where we're at. So, Mike, if you'll kind of give an explanation about how we got to this point and why dealing with FEMA and TEMA can be so much fun, I would appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor.
Let me interject something. There are 3 of us that are on that committee, and I've got the nods from 2 of the other, and I'll give my nod. So 3 out of the 7 of us are aware of it from that committee and are okay with you going ahead, Mike. So.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chairman P. Mike Hughes, Rutherford County Engineering Department. And what we are asking for tonight is a resolution to the second half of a grant that we applied for and the commission approved for us to apply back in 2019. FEMA, in their infinite wisdom, split up the grant, had 4 houses in one grant that they approved earlier, and then this last one that they approved just recently. And I can go through the history of what's happened, but I don't know, maybe I should for the newer commissioners. But essentially, a small subdivision was approved back in 2014, and that's what you see on the screen called Rockville Acres. And you can't see it, but on the map, and all this is on your iPad, I should have mentioned that, but on the final plat, it says flood map, and it gives that information, and it calls out Zone X, panel not printed. So when somebody looks at this final plat and says, oh, there's no FEMA flood zone, it's in Zone X outside of the FEMA flood zone. And if you even go to the next item, I'll zoom over. It's at the top of the screen. It's a portion of the FEMA flood map, and it says on there, area of minimal flood hazard, and then a little bit farther down, not printed. This map is not printed because FEMA said there's no flood hazard. So a couple of the residents built homes and moved in, and a short time later, the house is flooded. And looking at the next map down, it's a, it's a large map that looks kind of like this. And this is what's happened. Zooming in and looking at the top map, it says, okay, no flood hazard, everything's fine, build a house. Zooming out a little bit farther, you can see the blue area, which is a FEMA flood, special flood hazard area, and then there's a straight line. Well, FEMA, in their infinite wisdom, stopped studying Concord Creek way upstream of these properties. So when this was initially reviewed and approved, to the people developing it and to the staff at the time that this was approved, said there's no flood risk and approved the subdivision. So, but like I said, if you keep looking at the other items on there, you can not advancing. There you go. At the bottom of the screen, I apologize for these, but those are the 2 houses, and you can see all of the water surrounding the houses and inside the houses. The bottom photograph is water going over Rockville Road in a tremendous flood. That was, I think, July 20th, 2019. There are more photographs. Can you advance? There you go. So there's the field just upstream of Rockville Road, and then this is another photo of a flood event that happened in February 5th of 2020. So FEMA ended the study. We thought we could help these people out. They've had multiple damage to the brown house at the bottom. You can see they had 18 inches of water inside the house. So we applied for a grant. The commission approved us to apply for the grant, and we sent that in. Well, the pandemic hits, whatever. 4 years later, here we are. And they have approved the second grant to buy out these homes on Rockville Road, I would say because they realized that they should not have stopped their flood study so far upstream of this area. So the county and TEMA and FEMA will be purchasing these houses. FEMA will be paying 75%, TEMA will be paying 12.5%, and the county, it's 12.5%. So what we're proposing to do is allow the mayor to sign the contract to follow through with this part of the grant that was approved earlier. Well, it was split up by FEMA. We're going to transfer from line item 101, 34,585 restricted for capital projects. We're going to decrease it by the county's portion of $148,265 and then increase transfers to other funds that same amount, $148,265. And that's what we're asking for tonight. The homeowner at 11098 agreed to take the pre-event market value, pre-loss market value, instead of the current value of the house. So they're going to take what they paid for back in 2019. And that's kind of the last bit of that.
Mike, could you explain what happens to those homes and the property?
The homes will be demolished. The tanks will be filled in and excavated. The land will be empty from now on out. The county will have to mow a couple times a year. We could excavate that land out to help hold more water in for another flood event. But it cannot be built on. It cannot be sold. And we could lease it to someone to run cattle on, or sheep or goats or whatever, but it would have to be a nominal amount of like $1 a year, something minuscule.
You're saying if the next door neighbor wanted to buy that property, they could not?
No, sir. No, sir. It has to, Rutherford County has to own it from here on out. And this is kind of a last ditch effort to help these people out.
Do we share ownership with anyone?
No, sir, it would be Rutherford County. There would be a caveat on the deed that says, you know, this is FEMA buyout, a result of a FEMA buyout, and nothing can be transferred on that.
We use that for recreation, say if a local ball team.
You could use it for,
a ball field.
It's 3.5 acres, one part is 3.5 acres. You could, you know, if you could fit a softball field on there, you could do that.
But could you put up a fence or, you know, like a backstop fence in
I
the flood
believe you
zone?
can put a fence, yes.
That's normally allowed in flood zones.
Well, technically, it's not in a flood zone, so.
Well,
So.
Well, here's the other question, having been on planning myself. Was there ever a public hearing on these two properties before they were approved?
There was not, because it was zoned RM like the rest of the county.
Okay,
So it was just
the reason I ask that, and I'm telling you, if you've sat on planning long enough, and I know there's two long-term planning commissioners in, you have heard local people come up to these public hearings and say, guys, don't do this, it floods. And I've heard that too many times in the past, and I just want to make sure that we're not ignoring firsthand eyewitness accounts
Oh, sir.
on land that floods. Because
Yes, sir.
the last
So-
thing we need to do is keep accruing houses like this.
Yes, sir, and that is one thing that we're diligent about. Any piece of land that comes in to be developed to build a house on. Our engineering staff reviews it. We look for not just FEMA floods, but we look at local drainage concerns. Is it in a depression? Is it in a low area? Is it in hydric soil, wetland soil, anything like that? So we're very diligent about that. But at the time, the staff that was reviewing this looked at the best information they had available, and FEMA maps said no floodplain. So if we had people come up and say don't do it, we would definitely listen to it.
Well, I wasn't throwing rocks at you or your group. I know you're diligent. You know, we get complaints because we're too slow approving them. But personally, I feel like you need to take that time to do that so we don't come up with a problem like this. Anyway, I appreciate what you're doing there. Another question I've got, this $148,265, which is our portion, is that for both properties?
Yes, that's for both properties.
Any questions from the committee?
You mentioned that we could not sell it, but we might lease it to someone for $1 a year, is that right?
I believe that's what I've heard.
And the next door neighbor was interested in buying it, was that right?
Yes. Well, I don't know if he could buy it. He would have to lease it if he stayed there.
But he had interest in it, interest in the property. Where I'm going with this, could we not lease it to him for $1 and let him mow it twice a year and carry the insurance on it, rather than the county take the cost of doing both?
Yes, sir. I would think so. I would have to check with the FEMA rules, but I think that we would have to send it out to bid. But I think $1 is the highest amount we can take.
Mike, can you have that information? If this passes tonight, it'll go to the full commission, I guess the 16th or our next commission meeting. Can you have those answers for us by then?
Yes, sir. Now, Phyllis Foltz, my assistant, is back here, and she's nodding yes, we can. Yes, we can lease it, but we have to go through the whole bid process. So we'll have to pay to advertise. We'll have to, and go through the process to open bids and whatnot.
It can only be leased for agricultural or recreational purposes.
Yes, sir.
Only.
Excuse me.
Hey, you've heard the discussion, you're recognized, Commissioner.
Thank you. I'm still trying to sort out, why are we doing this? I mean,
yes, sir.
why is the county, because there's a lot of, you just drive around Leanna or in that area after a flood or some rain, and you get a lot of floodland out there, and I'm just trying to think through, and I'm not making light of it, I'm just trying to understand, why are we buying this land that's flooding? In this particular case, I'm struggling with that.
Yes, sir. Well, this is, like I said, the last ditch effort to help these people out. They relied on the information that was shown on the final plat. They built a house or bought a house that was in this area. I mean, it's kind of, why did we help out the people of Rockville? We're just, we did what we could to help out.
Commissioner, in the past, and I'm talking quite a few years ago, we didn't have the stringent reviews that we do now. And the county actually approves some properties that were prone to flooding. And at that time, the commission, when we first started doing this, felt like that was our fault. We didn't do our due diligence, and that's basically why we got started down this road. Now, in this particular case here, I throw that completely back on FEMA. But Michael's correct. I think that, we're picking up a 12th of it, or is it a 16th? I forget what the total. 12.5% of that cost.
Yes.
Where these guys were at no fault. I mean, they bought what they bought with the assurance that it would be safe, and blew up in their face. They're getting flooding, not because they didn't do their due diligence, but because we didn't have the information to prevent this from happening, because FEMA didn't do their flood map all the way across. We were told, had that been in the flood map, these lots would not have been approved.
Yes. Not without elevating the ground that the house sits on and then the floor above that. So one of the maps you saw that the FEMA maps, it says area of minimal flood hazard, Zone X. It's saying clearly on the FEMA maps, even today, it says these are not in the FEMA flood zone. And that's the information that the previous staff reviewed and approved these maps with.
And this property, can it be built up now to the point where it could be resold? And, you know, you tear it down, you build it up, you sell it to a developer, they'll build.
Well, you can only use it for flood control if we wanted to excavate out a big pit to hold water, if you wanted to use it for a park or agricultural uses. You cannot build on it again.
Commissioner Irwin, this is an age-old program that FEMA has put together, and it's kind of a no-fault. FEMA's accepting responsibility for allowing those homes to be built in an area that's prone to flood. State is also accepting some responsibility. The county's also accepting some responsibility. We're trying to hold citizens, homeowners, blameless for building sites that is prone to flood and mitigate that fault, I guess. So it's an age-old program. We've done it a number of times in the past, but we've grown up as a county. We have good information now, and the chances of these things happening are slim to none as we continue to go forward. But this is a federal program to give relief to people whose property is prone to flood. So, and one of the responsibilities that we accept is to assume ownership of that property and not allow this thing to be repeated at some point in time. I'd hesitate to say that it's forever, but that's the indication that it is forever. But who knows, 20 years from now, what type of engineering we're able to accomplish. So those things could change, but not. But this is an opportunity that the government, including Rutherford County, the state of Tennessee, and the federal government has said, we made a mistake, and we're going to hold the homeowner blameless for that. So we're going to buy this property back from them. It never should have been sold.
And thank you for that. How often, I'm just trying to get a sense, does it occur? Is it, how many, you've been around a long time. I'm trying to get just a sense for.
We haven't approved one of these in, I don't know how many years. It's been a long, long time, but it's been years. This particular development was looked at by our planning department, our engineering department, and the decision was made based on the information that we had, which turned out to be inadequate or faulty information. So we're just trying to correct a mistake that was made on the federal government's part, the state of Tennessee's part, and accept some responsibility for the county. The amount of money that we're talking about right here goes to help citizens of the county to get out of an unacceptable situation. Put yourself in the place of that homeowner right there. He built in good faith, and we allowed him to build in good faith. So what we're trying to do is to get these people out of an unacceptable situation. And
yes, sir. Well said. Yes, sir.
Okay, you've heard the discussion. And one thing I'll mention, I've been here a little while too. I think 8 is the most that we've looked at, and not all of those have been approved. May have been a few more that we looked at. I know one of the first ones is over off of Twin Oak Drive.
Twin Oak Drive, and then there's some off of Jefferson Pike.
Right.
That before my time, yeah.
Right. Those were the first ones that came through. Chairman Gooch.
Yeah, years ago in Deerfield, there was a house, and we did everything we could as far as digging wells and digging up stuff, and it's just nothing we could do. And so I knew them personally. No fault of their own. And back during the day, I think the county did approve that lot. So I do support things like this, and it doesn't happen all the time, and we're not talking about a massive amount of money. So my motion is to approve this, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion to approve. Do I hear a second? And a second. Any further discussion or questions? I'll make one statement. If you're buying property in this county or anywhere else, go talk to the farmers in that area and ask them, does this flood, or is there any other reason? Because I'm telling you, the people that are out there working that land, they know. And there definitely people knew that this flooded before those houses were built on it. I guarantee you, you don't see that kind of water that we're seeing in these pictures without people being aware of it. Any other discussion? We have a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman,
Serino.
I remember when Mr. Hughes mentioned, in my district in Bradyville Pike, one situation, the flood come over, the owner of the house come and call me quite several times and talked to Mr. Hughes, and he talked to him. Now it's get better. He put, the driveway, put the dirt, around it. So I remember that situation well. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other discussion? Mark, call roll.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Serino?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes. That was a reluctant yes, but.
These are the bane of my existence, and I hope to never see these again.
If, Mr. Hughes, if I have anything to say about it, this is the last time you'll be before this committee on this particular issue.
Yes, sir. Agreed. Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
There being no further business on this committee, Chairman Piercy.
Chairman P., I had asked our finance director to look in and see if he could give me a reply on taking our raise to our tax rate that we voted through the other night, if it was possible to shift it over onto the wheel tax sticker. And he has a reply.
So I did go and analyze wheel tax stickers or permits, whatever you want to call them there, and I did look and see what it would take, how much you would have to increase wheel tax by to offset the pennies on the property tax. And keep in mind, one caveat, as I always give, is wheel tax is a little different than property tax in that it fluctuates. And I'm going to give you an example. So for example, in 2021 to 2022, we had an almost 10% increase from there. And historically, it grows around 3% or so. The reason we had that increase is because emissions testing went away during that time. So when we're looking at this as a percentage-wise, this is the best estimate and guesses I have with the data that we have today. But it would be approximately a $140 increase to wheel tax is my estimate, to equate to the same dollar amount that would raise from the 26 cents of property tax.
Go ahead.
And that would make the wheel tax be what in a total?
Of course, you have different rates, but for a regular car, it should be approximately let me make sure I'm telling you this right, $220.50.
I think that's something the committee really should look at, because it's more of an even tax over the entire county. The people that have an apartment and a car versus the people that have a 100-acre farm, a 200-acre farm. It would kind of even the tax pay out evenly to everyone. It's just my idea.
I've got a question for you, Michael. The money for the wheel tax, how is that dispersed? And this amount that you gave us, would that bring the same revenue that the proposed tax increase would bring, that would go actually to the county? I know to our general fund.
So a couple things, I'll note a couple things. I'll answer that and then I'll expand a little bit. So right now our wheel tax is split, off the top of my head, I believe it's 30% to the general fund, 30% to highway, and 40% to general purpose schools. So that percentage, if you wanted to get the revenue, that increased revenue, right, to go all to the general fund to make up the pennies there, we would have to change that percentage in the tax levy resolution or in the appropriations resolution. So we could do that. That is definitely doable. The other issue or hiccup that this would cause is if you I've pulled the TCA code, I've talked with our county attorney. This requires, if we were to do this, this requires a 2/3 vote at the county legislative body at 2 consecutive regular county legislative body meetings. So there is a hiccup with the time frame there of seeing, of getting this in time. And then you have 3 ways to change wheel tax. One's by private act, one's by referendum, and one is this way. However, if you were to pass this by a 2/3 vote at 2 consecutive regular county legislative body meetings, the public still has an option for a referendum if enough, a petition with enough signatures get on that petition based on a certain percentage in the last governor's election. And I believe that has happened here before. It's been several years ago. But yes, we would have to change the percentage on the appropriations resolution for wheel tax.
Well, do you see that being a hardship? You said roads and schools, if we change those appropriations.
Well, I think what we would keep those the same, because if we did this would be, if I understand Commissioner Piercy, he would want to do this to offset the pennies of the property tax increase. So we would have to change that percentage. It would no longer be 30, 30, and 40. It would be whatever the math worked out to be. They would get a less percentage, but they would get the same dollar amount. So it wouldn't affect their budgets. I think that was the question, kind of what you were getting at.
Good question.
Mr. Chairman, could you repeat the figures again as far as what we would have to raise the, add to the wheel tax and what that would bring it to?
$140 added to the wheel tax. Now, I do believe the county wheel tax right now is $50, so we would add $140 to that. And I read you a number wrong a second ago. I need to correct myself. I said 220 a minute ago, it'd be 225.50. Now, keep in mind that...
What's the current one?
The current is $50. Wheel tax is $50. That doesn't mean that's what you pay, because there's a $35.50 state charge on there as well. But that's only for the residential, single pass or a passenger vehicle, not farm tags, commercial tags. Trying to think of another one.
Well, the tags vary.
Correct.
So
correct. This would be for the regular passenger tag.
So the regular passenger tag would go up to $225?
It'd go up by $140, yes.
But if it's currently $50...
Wheel tax is currently $50. On top of that is the state charge, which is $35.50.
$35, okay.
Correct.
That's where you're coming up with the $225.50.
Correct.
But the $35 that's not a wheel tax, that's the fee to get your license.
That's the fee for the state charges. I honestly don't know what it's the technical name for it off the top of my head, but it's not ours.
Okay, but the wheel tax...
We get the $50.
The wheel tax would be $190.
Correct.
And then what the state charges is a license fee is something different that would bring the total to $220.
And again, I'm basing that off the regular passenger tag, not a specialty plate, not a farm plate, not a commercial plate.
Would this put any kind of hardship on Lisa Kroll's office to be able to handle this increase?
I don't know off the top of my head. I have full disclosure, I have not spoken to her about this. I did try to pull all the estimates, revenue estimates, to get this number tonight and review the legal aspect. I would assume you could change the rate in her BIS system, so I would assume it would be pretty simple for her. But I just don't want to speak to it too much without speaking with her.
Mayor, you're recognized.
Excuse me, Chairman Phillips, can you, I think I understood Mike correctly, that this has to be approved on 2 successive regularly calendared meetings. Can you address how that would be done with the 14 days left we have in the calendar?
I could give you my opinion.
Well, as the chairman, that's why I'm asking.
Next Wednesday, I believe it's Thursday, I believe it's the 16th. It could be presented next Thursday and then turned around and presented again on the 26th. So those are the 2 consecutive meetings. It could be both of those. It could happen by the end of the month. Theoretically, it could anyway.
Thank you.
Michael, well, you want to address that?
I don't want to say it couldn't happen, but I will tell you the legwork to get the documents changed. Keep in mind, we sent, I believe it was really early this morning, we sent the budget publication to the paper. Now, obviously, that can change, but to get all the documents changed I base this on mid-year estimates. Keep in mind, we still don't have a full year's worth of estimates. So theoretically, yes, it could happen, but it would take some legwork, and keep in mind, I'd be basing that on revenues that were incomplete for this fiscal year. I looked back. Our former finance director did a great job. I'm going to give her all the credit for this. She prepared a list dating back till really the first wheel tax of how this was passed, and generally it was passed not in June, or not with this crunch. So not to say we couldn't do it, but it would be very tight. We would really have to take a vote tonight to get it on the agenda for the, because that agenda, I believe, will go out tomorrow night or Monday morning, I think, for the commission agenda next Thursday, I believe is when that goes out.
Go out Monday or Tuesday at the latest, 48 hours in advance.
So we would need to put that on the agenda by Monday then to get it on the agenda. I did speak with our county attorney, and I don't want to speak for him, but he believes this needs to be posted on the agenda, not under other business at a regular commission meeting. So that would need to go on there Monday when it goes out, or Tuesday.
No one's asked my opinion, but I am going to throw it out there. If this was approved and we needed a second date, I would suggest a date after the 26th. If it was approved on the 26th, 27th, or whatever day we had after that.
So it has to be a regular scheduled already meeting. It cannot be a special called meeting. So I did confirm that with the county attorney today. And we went and both looked at state law, and he actually looked around at some other counties to see what they had done at this time of year. And then I did pull it just to double check, and it does say 2 consecutive regular county legislative body meetings. And then he went further to pull some other case law, and they'd have to be already previously scheduled regular meetings, not special called.
Well, let me keep kicking this can just for a second. I like the idea, Commissioner Piercy. I think we're going to have to discuss this a lot more. For one thing, you notice there was an increase of the number of cars we registered from 2021, 22, I think in my notes here. And the reason for that was that we dropped the requirement for the air purification test
Emissions.
and emission testing. So people that had not been coming here came back, or they brought vehicles that they hadn't been using or licensing and did it. Now, if we jump this tax up 300%, we're going to have people that are going to go to other counties and not bring their vehicles here. So I think you may end up saying it would cost a lot more than the 220 or the 140 to do it, because we're going to lose some people that do this. There are some people that are financially restricted are not going to be able to do it, for one. But anyway, I think we need to discuss this a little bit more, and I'm not adverse to looking at this. I like the way it sounds. I like it a lot better than, a 26% tax increase. I mean, I know what that's going to cost me. It'd be less than this, but I mean, it'd be more than the wheel tax, quite a bit more. But My suggestion, if we're serious about doing this, is, if you want another meeting, I don't know who this would normally go to. Would that normally go to one of our other committees or come to budget? If not, we can discuss it at one of our upcoming budget meetings.
I would think it'd be budget. I can't think of another committee this would.
I've seen it going through steering before. That's why I say that. It's been initiated out of steering the 2 times or 3 times I've seen it, hadn't it, Paul or Jeff?
It's been so long, I can't really remember, but I'm assuming it would have gone through steering first, just to have multiple conversations. Let me just say that you wouldn't have to do the whole amount. You could do something less than that might make it more palatable to the general public at some point in time. Or you could actually start doing something now to put it in effect January 1st, as an example.
Well, one good thing, we have a public hearing coming up on it's the 13th. And is there a chance to get this as a possibility in the publication?
No.
No,
for that?
No.
Okay.
Publication's already gone out.
Well, I knew we were under constraint there. But this is something we can say here, hey, this is something we could entertain and look at. But let's look at our upcoming budget meetings. We are not scheduled for the 14th at this time. And I was going to wait till the 13th and the comments that we got to decide with you as a group whether you wanted to have a meeting on the 14th. My suggestion now would be to use the 14th to investigate this a little further. Plus, we'll have the public hearing behind us. But that's up to the committee, and we can decide that on the 13th. But there's one date that we've got that we could discuss it more.
I don't know the timing. I just don't exactly know that whole timing of this, but Mayor Carr and I have talked about a July meeting, and a July full commission meeting is on the calendar right now. Whether or not it's canceled, we'll determine that probably after the 26th or around the 26th when we have our annual meeting. But we also have a July meeting currently on the calendar.
Well, we'd have to have our financing in place by the 26th or by the end of the fiscal year. So I don't know that the July calendar would help us on that. Anyway, that's food for thought. Mayor?
Yeah, one final thought. As this committee knows, I hate the position we're in. I loathe it to the marrow of my being. I really do. And I hate that we're constantly being forced to make some difficult decisions that in many, many respects are no fault of our own. And I really appreciate everybody's contribution in trying to find a workable solution to a very difficult situation. And I can't tell you how much I hate this. I hate it. But I do want to say, with regard to this particular wheel tax, that this is the classic definition of regressive tax, because it's a flat fee that applies equally to everybody without regard to their ability to pay. That is by definition a regressive tax. I don't say that to sway your opinion about the merits of this or part of it one way or another, but just to bring some more facts. And that's all of us are trying to do. Make sure we have all the facts available to us so we can make the very best decision we can on behalf of the property taxpayers and the citizens of Rutherford County. So as we go through and discuss this, and I think we should discuss this, I just understand that this is by definition a regressive tax. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else from the committee?
I had one other question for our finance director. What is the average tax bill for Rutherford County, just on the average home? Is there average, has it been averaged out per house?
I think, let me pull that up. believe I did that the other day.
You and I, if I may, you and I spoke about this, that the average tax bill for an average home, the 26-cent property tax increase, I believe, Michael, you said was going to be about $24 a month?
I'm going to pull it up right here. I got it. If you let me update this right real quick. So it would go up 2450. Is you were really close. The average tax bill currently right now is a little over $1,800, and then the new one would be right at $2,100 for a difference of, and this is a $450,000 home. But the increase would be about $24 a month, $24.50 a month, for a difference of $293 a year.
So it's, if we put it on the wheel tax, it's basically half the amount? Is that what we're talking about? Pretty close?
Well, on a per car basis, yes,
Right.
yes, but yes.
Thank you.
Just, excuse me, two thoughts, and I agree with the mayor on the being regressive. I think, we worry about, can we get this into publication? Well, if we would say to vote on this tonight, by tomorrow night, everybody in the county would know. I'm just saying. And second, if you've got a two-car family and then the teenager has a car, we're talking about a big bill. And then you look at seniors who may rent, or home is much less than this $450,000. And they have two cars, they're really going to be hit. So when the mayor says we need time to get all the facts together, all of the information we need, it's going to take, I would say, months. And as much as I appreciate you trying to come up with some kind of alternative to a property tax increase, I think that this tax could really hit seniors and working families really hard on the amount that we're having to go up. That's just my thoughts on it.
Michael.
I just have one thing I'd like to add. I'd like to give you all the facts as many as I could. So I'd like to point out one thing for y'all, or two things really, but they go together. So one, on the revenue report I give y'all every month, I give the property tax dating all the way back to 2014. And so as you can see, it's a very consistent collection rate. It's always above 97%. Quite often it's above 98%. So, we can count on that every year. It's very consistent, and the growth is consistent. And so I think one of the things to consider is, if we're doing this in lieu of a penny, right, is how consistent is this? How predictable is it for future years, and what's the growth? Because if we were to do 26 pennies, those are going to grow every year, just like the penny does grow every year. So I will add one thing. This grows a little bit less. I did this calculation back to 2015, and it has grown at a slower rate than our current penny.
Guys, any other comments? Well, it's certainly given us something to think about, and Commissioner Gooch, you're exactly right. If we voted on it tonight, there'd be a lot of people know about it tomorrow. However, I don't think we fleshed this out well enough. Commissioner Irving?
Just a quick question. We don't have to do the full amount to cover the 26. We could, correct? We could pick a number.
That's correct. You don't have to increase that.
I was just trying to get a sense for this. So it may be possible to adjust some other things and then take this into account as well. So if it works, which I encourage a lot of looking into it as well before the next meeting.
Yeah, the only other thing I'll throw out there, the way that this is changed, the commission can vote to change it. It can also go to referendum. you know, if this was an idea that people liked enough, it could go on the ballot. And if they said, hey, we want to add that $140 or whatever that number is to decrease our property tax rate, and that go to a referendum, I would fully support going to a referendum on something like that, where that would offset the property tax rate and take that away. I mean, those are kind of options that we could look at even if we couldn't pass something along these lines by the 26th. But in the future, you know, we could say, hey, we can put this on the ballot. If there's interest in doing that, hey, I'm welcome to it. Anytime our citizens want to voice their opinion, I'm welcome in that. Michael, do you have a comment?
I was just going to say that's correct. You know, if something happened, we added pennies this year and we studied this or able to get more time to do it, you know, you can always reduce pennies in the future and supplement this if this was something that we could study or something. If y'all wanted me to do that, that's an option. Chairman P is correct there. If y'all wanted me to do that.
You know, there's several things we're looking at, and I'm like our mayor. We may not agree on everything, but we will agree on this. It is very distasteful to me to have property tax increase at any time. However, and especially being on budget, you may vote against some of these things, but you've got to figure out a way to pay for this. And we basically have our hands tied. You know, one thing, this idea from Commissioner Piercy, I think it's a good idea. I think we need to look into it. Also, we're working with our codes department and our planning department, our engineering department at our fees. And we're going to have to continue to look at that if we're not getting the support from our legislators to get meaningful impact fees in this county. Now, that's my personal opinion. And if you want to know where my distaste is, it's not getting the support from our legislators to get this passed at the state level. When I'm saying getting this passed, it's us having the ability to increase the impact fees on new growth as we see fit. But those are several of the options that are out there. Guys, are there any other discussion, any other comments? If not, we're adjourned.